Hello, internet friends. My name is Bay, and welcome to the Battle for Azeroth beta of the second pass for the Fury Warrior, on which this train has no brakes. And I will show you why very soon. But I'm going to go over talent adjustments, spells and abilities that have been lost or gained, what's been kept from your Legion artifacts or legendaries, new graphics, a brief overview of the War Mode talent system, and any GCD changes. I was thinking about making a really bad joke there about the new recklessness animation, but there was a new patch today and they could have fixed it, or it's actually supposed to be like that, so we'll see it many times in this video, I'm sure. But there's no true gameplay in this video. In this series overall is more of a one-man podcast walkthrough primer of what your spec is going to be like going from Legion into the Battle for Azeroth. The entire second pass testing VOD where we try out a whole slew of things and discuss and talk about and go into the database a lot more in depth is in the video description box down below if you want to go check that out. It's hosted over on my Twitch channel, of course, where all the live testing happens. And of course, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, leave that down below in the comments section, of course, what it's there for. And then, of course, if you enjoy my ramblings or you're new to the channel, of course, don't forget to hit that subscribe button to know when new videos come out. I left the interface up here so you could soak in like the buttons and maybe new things you haven't seen before and some of the changes we're about to go over here. And because I may have forgotten and my gnome's name is short-tempered, which is pretty good, right? That's pretty good. Let's get the axes out here. There we go. So let's go over all the baseline stuff that I have here in my notes. Biggest one, case in point, is right here. So the Enrage tooltip and the clarity updates and how Enrage even functions has been changed significantly. So now you become enraged on a 30% chance per bloodthirst that can be modified by one talent, or whenever you rampage, which always enrages you. It will increase your damage done by whatever your Mastery Unshackled Fury is during the enrage window. It will give you a 25% haste modifier, not an attack speed modifier. That is haste. And also 10% movement speed, all for 4 seconds. Always 4 seconds. None of the BT flat percent crit madness things that you had in the RNG for it. It's always going to be Mastery, 25% haste steroid, and some movement speed for 4 seconds. The damage taken is gone. The duration is not changed by haste. It's always 4 seconds. And then, of course, the movement speed was added on top of that just for a little bit of extra something or other. On that note, because you're not taking additional damage, the Titan's Grip extra max HP bonus you had is gone. You're still going to have a little bit more HP because you are using two-handers, but that's not going to be a huge deal compared to the scaling you had before with the extra HP, but you took more damage when you were enraged. That's all just gone. Additionally, Whirlwind now is almost all the time going to be your actual filler. It generates 3 rage plus an additional 1 per target you hit with the enrage, up to a maximum of 8 rage per Whirlwind in total. It also activates the Whirlwind effect, where your next 2 single target attacks will strike up to 4 additional targets for half damage. This was actually just buffed. This was 40%. Now it's half damage, 50% damage. So it's your filler, it's a AoE rage generator, and it's also your cleave and weave ability because you want to put this in between 2 single target abilities to gain the best use out of that. You'll notice that Furious Slash is on my bars, but is not highlighted. It's because it is now a talent. So the base mechanic of using that is no longer here. And then one more baseline thing before I show off what it actually looks like is that Rampage now, going back to the whole Enrage giving you haste, Rampage is no longer a 2-second locked cast. Whoops, sorry about that. Locked cast animation. So it's 4 strikes down from 5, and the animation scales with your haste, or in this case, your GCD. So that this always will sync within a global cooldown window. And I have a certain talent build right now. We'll go over all this stuff, of course, later. But just to show you what it looks like, they also move the dummies in this build. Let's go over the AoE dummies real quick, just so more numbers are on screen. And make sure my numbers are turned on after this new build that just came out. I'm not sure if all your macros and things are working. So anyway, what does Fury Warrior look like now? Well, let's do one of those first. Oh, I should have whirlwinded again because I didn't activate the AoE. They still have not fixed that bug. That is still busted, which is unfortunate. There's a bug right now with the whirlwind effect that the second ability you use on the charge doesn't actually AoE for whatever reason. Normally it's just Raging Blow. You can see it just not working right there. But that was a opener with Reckless Abandon and Frothing Berserker is what I have currently, at least the new updated version of it. But that is sort of what it looks like to Fury Warrior, granted in gnome size because I am rather small. Yeah, that second charge of Raging Blow is still busted. You also notice that Raging Blow has 2 charges. So what else is happening here? Let's go stand on this little second grain. That's right. Come on, do it. You can. Never mind. So what else is going on here behind the scenes? We have, and again, it's Recklessness, not Warcry. So this now is the new major cooldown you have. I mean, not new, renamed, I should say. It's a 90-second cooldown. It gives you 100% more rage generation, which is double the rage generation you have basic. Then it's a 20% increased critical strike chance on your abilities. And because I have Reckless Abandon, this is 4 additional seconds. So Recklessness lasts 10 seconds base. And this is giving me 100 rage on the start there. You also saw that I used a Blade Storm in that window. So not only is Rampage scaling with haste, but Rampage, right there's the quick animation. Blade Storm also scales with haste. Let me do one more Enrage window so you can see. So if you Blade Storm, it'll always fit inside of an Enrage window now, because its actual cast duration is reduced with your haste. So all of that works together now. The core here is Raging Blow. So this has a 8-second cooldown, I believe, unless it's been changed, reduced by your haste. Let me double check on that, actually, because, again, a new build went live right before I recorded this video, or am recording. Double checking. Let's see. Oh, gosh, the whole thing is broken. It is, yeah, 8 seconds, reduced by haste. So it goes down way, way, way low. I'll show you the haste we can actually stack in a little bit as well. But it's 2 charges, generates 12 rage, and has a 20% chance to have its own Divine Purpose style proc, where it will reset itself instantly. So I do believe this is higher in the priority. Obviously, Rampage is your highest priority, and then Raging Blow, followed by Bloodthirst. And then if you have to use a filler, you'll use Whirlwind, unless you take the new Furious Slash. Auto attack rage generation, I do believe is 6. It's 0.6. Let me go back to my notes. It's 6.x for a main hand and 3.x for an offhand. So it's roughly about 9 to 10 per main hand offhand combination here. You see it going up by about 10 right now. When my auto attacks have been synced, there was 9 right there. So that's about average what you're going to see. A lot of your rage will really come from the combination of abilities with the way the auto attack rage scaling works, with, of course, how much you're going to be haste scaling out of control. You saw some executes in there because I have the new talent Sudden Death. Execute now is also a cooldown that generates 20 rage when used, only usable under 20% HP on targets. It's used to build more towards Enrage windows, and it sort of replaces either Bloodthirst or Whirlwind in the single target rotation when you're in the execute window. And of course, if you get a proc with Sudden Death, as I have the talent for it, then you use it. So it's to remove either one of those abilities that are obviously just weaker. And when you're in the execute window, you'll use this instead of a Bloodthirst, or you'll use this instead of a Whirlwind, depending on where you're at in the rotation. So instead of eating up rage. It's now a builder because when you get to build rage faster, you're going to be in the enrage window faster, which gives you more executes anyway because of haste scaling, and of course gives you more rage to stay in the enrage window all the time, which then amplifies all your damage by mastery, right? That's how it all sort of comes together, that you're very, very rage focused, very resource building focused. You also may have seen that Victory Rush has returned to the Fury Warrior, and this can of course be upgraded with a talent, which we'll go into in just a moment. And you have Battle Shout. Battle Shout is the warrior's group play buff, I guess now, which again, having these in the game, Fortitude, Intellect, and Battle Shout don't feel good when you have them. They just feel bad when you don't. But that's neither here nor there. Berserker's Rage is just whatever it is. It's just the utility ability. And then everything else you still have here. Piercing Shout still have 50% snare. You still have Intimidating Shout. Enraged Regen is still a 30% DR on a 2-minute cooldown that gives your Bloodthirst an additional 20% health heal for 8 seconds. And then Charge still generates rage. Bloodthirst still generates a little bit less rage. It went down a little bit. It's a 5% heal was 4. Its 8 rage was 10. And the cooldown is unchanged. So just a little tweak there overall. Rallying Cry was renamed from commanding to rally. That's how it's supposed to be. It's pop rally, not pop commanding. Get out of here with that. And again, Rampage, you're seeing right now the cost increase because of Frothing Berserker. But by default, Rampage is 85. So right there. But that is the core kit. And again, to see what it looks like when you're just weaving through abilities. Let's do this so I get the cleave on. And I have one more stack of this and one more. Yep, there we go. It's so much rage generation. One more. There it is. And yes, of course, Execute does cleave with your Whirlwind. Absolutely does. Absolutely does. This is obviously on multiple targets when I'm actually weaving the Whirlwind in. Let's do Whirlwind first. There's a little bit of rage generation you're going to notice that you may lose here and there because activating the Whirlwind, it's not called Meat Cleaver anymore. Meat Cleaver is now a talent, but the Whirlwind Meat Cleaver effect, it might be some rage loss because you only have 2 charges of the cleave and weave kind of a thing. But that also comes down to play that if you have a better priority system than I'm not doing right now, I'm just showing off what it looks like, then you'll obviously weave through that way better than I will. So, talents now. It's going to be a bit of a big thing to slog through. So here are your talents on live, and a lot of the same icons are there. But let's see, what's the Shadow Priest and this Frost Mage doing? Gotta be some background while I'm sitting here. Sure, look at their animations, even though you're a Fury Warrior. So the big changes overall to your talents that have been removed, no longer have Shockwave or Outburst, no Avatar, Wrecking Ball, Bloodbath, which is either Good Riddance or Awe, and then the Frenzy talent, sort of. Talents that were updated or tweaked. We have War Machine now. This is autos gain 10% more rage, and kills will generate 10 rage and give you a 30% movement speed for 8 seconds. The Legion version right now is that just getting a kill gives you 30% haste and movement speed. So now this has been tweaked a bit more to still have like the on-kill bonus, but it's just the auto attacks gain rage, because Endless Rage now is the Angry Hat. So you gain rage whenever you are enraged, and you saw in those little windows of time, with or without cooldowns, you definitely get enraged quite quickly. So this just turns around to give you free rage after you either proc enrage on Bloodthirsts, or of course whenever you actually spend your rage on enraging through Rampage. So both of those just come around the horn a little faster. And then the new Fresh Meat, which has been overhauled. This is an additive 15% chance on enrage via Bloodthirst, so it goes up to 45%, and 20% more multiplicative healing on the heal. The current version of Fresh Meat is that 60% increase crit on targets above 80% health, right? The reverse execute. So this now gives you rotational changes. Are you... Endless Rage obviously works really well within Reckless Abandon or Anger Management because it syncs well with Recklessness, but also works well if you're doing a lot of AoE because you might be building a lot more rage than you normally would be. and then it gives you the extra rage around the horn. War Machine's really good for, I guess, PvP and for world questing, right? The extra movement speed and extra rage could help. And then Fresh Meat, also the same kind of thing, right? You get more enrages a little bit more often with Bloodthirst. It may or may not change your priority to actually Bloodthirst over Raging Blows. I don't think so, though. And then, of course, you get a little extra healing from Fresh Meat, which you can still, of course, combine with Furious Charge, which multiplies your heal after you charge, which you can then, of course, still sync with Double Time, right? These all are things you can still do. Impending Victory replaces Victory Rush. This becomes an on-demand heal that costs 10 rage. It will heal you for 15% of your max health and does light damage. The damage it does, of course, will still be amplified by the enrage window, and you still heal yourself for a whole freaking lot due to the fact that this is basically a built-in offensive health stone. So comparing the talents you have right now above my head, you got some really nice new potentials for at least a little more sustain, because by default you only have one defensive cooldown outside of, you know, Rallying Cry, I guess, in that regard. So Impending Victory coming into play for the DPS warrior specs looks really nice. I cannot say how much this is going to be a huge component for like Mythic Plus or Mythic rating, just progression in general, due to the fact that having on-demand healing is going to be just good. You don't always need Double Time, but you can, of course, Double Time with Fresh Meat and in Furious Charge. Stormbolt still remains your 4-second range stun, if you need it, of course. Then, down here, we have Sudden Death. You saw that as a new talent. This comes in. This is sort of the Legendary Ring, I guess, I suppose, for like Arms Warrior, but this comes over across the board now. This was actually toned down in today's build, I was told. It was like 2.5 times haste RPPM, which again, you get a lot of haste as Fury. It's like 1.6 now. This just has your RPPM chance to proc executes and make them usable on any target regardless of your health, which you saw that I can actually do the Whirlwind Cleave mechanic with, so, which is fine, but it was proccing a little bit too often. Compared to Inner Rage, the new version, it's 1 second off the cooldown of Raging Blow, plus 20% damage on Raging Blow. Legion's version is just Raging Blow no only requires Enrage, but it has a cooldown plus a lot of damage. But very different overall use of Raging Blow now, of course. And then the new Furious Slash. So the new Furious Slash comes into play as a new filler that would, I would imagine, on single target anyway, replace Whirlwind. So now this aggressively strike with your offhand weapon, dealing some light physical damage and increasing your haste by 2% for 15 seconds up to 3 stacks, and it generates 4 rage. So I want to go off when I tangent here a little bit. We'll keep the new Furious Slash right now. That's 6% multiplicative haste. And we'll take the new Frothing Berserker, which I already have here, which is Rampage will now cost 10 more rage, 95 rage. It increases your damage done by 10% and haste by 5%, another haste multiplier for 6 seconds. Now, I currently have a little bit more haste than you're going to have right after you level. People are telling me we only have about 10-ish% haste. The upper echelon of like 15 to 16% may only really be in like Mythic end game, sort of Uldir tier 1 gear, I suppose. But just keep your eye on the birdie for the haste modifier down there. I'm just going to stack this up real quick. With no real use for this in any regard, I'm just going to pop Reckless Abandon. So we're at 61% haste. No big deal. That's totally fine, right? So that's just all the time now. And you can, of course, see how fast the global cooldown is right there as well. It's at 0.9 seconds. That's under the 1 second mark. Of course, the global cooldown for the Fury Warrior would scale all the way up to 0.75 if you actually had 100% haste. But that is just all the time. And it'll be a little lower. You'll be around like maybe high 40% in starting gear. So it'll be a little slower than this. But I mean, really, like, you're GCD locked completely with the Fury Warrior here. I'm just hitting whirlwinds on these targets because I just want to have the meat cleaver effect happen. But it's very, very smooth, very, very fast, and feels very much more like a Fury Warrior should, without the weird locked 2-second cast rampage that you also animation cancel, kind of. But that's if you stack all of the haste, which is Furious Slash and the new Frothing Berserker. So, We also have on the same tier here, go back over to Carnage. So as Frothing Berserker is sort of this extra damage and haste window, but obviously Rampage costs more. Maybe too easy to actually do this though. Not sure I was going to slow down a little bit at max level. Carnage goes the other direction. Makes your Rampage deal more damage itself. So of course that works with single target or AoEing, but it costs 10 less. So this is more Rampages to get you in the Enrage window more often. Frothing Berserker, though, are a little bit stronger, but a little bit less often. This may depend on what kind of encounter you're doing, because then they just compete with Massacre now, which is just Execute is usable at plus 15% more health. Instead of at 20%, it's at 35. So this is Executes earlier, stronger Rampage windows, and a little bit of self-buff, but a little bit less Enrage uptime, and then more Enrage uptime all the time. With Carnage, you can almost stay nearly permanently enraged. Depending on if you get Raging Blow resets, you almost just sit in the Enrage window. So this all depends on maybe gearing, or if you're going like crit mastery, or if you're actually going any haste first and then mastery crit, whatever. I'm not sure. But definitely some choices here. Obviously, Massacre is going to have a huge potential on big end tier boss fights, Agrimar, Argus, when you're in the execute window for 2 or 3 plus minutes. Because having the ability to generate that much extra rage all the time will be huge. Your utility tier here right now is interesting. So you have Furious Charge was actually cut down a little bit. I think it was 300% on live. Yeah. Bounding Stride is unchanged. And now Warpaint is you take 10% reduced damage while you're in the Enrage window. So Warpaint Carnage. Also a potential that you actually can spec this if there are fights that have a lot of just consistent AoE damage happening all the time. Because if you can be in Enrage almost all the time and take 10% less damage almost all the time and have an on-demand heal, it's pretty good extra survivability if you ask me. And of course, Bounding Stride, Double Time have a ton of mobility options if you need that as well. But the options are there now. Going down to your 90 tier, the new Meat Cleaver is that Whirlwind has a 10% chance to enrage you and generates 1 additional rage per target hit, up to 3 additional rage. So that can be 11 rage on every Whirlwind. But I do believe the enrage effect is still not working. Let's double check a couple times here. The 10% chance that it enrages you is just not happening. Of course, you can force your enrage because of generating all that extra, but yeah, it's not seeing a random enrage proc from just whirlwinding. This is still not implemented. So this could be good. It's hard to think about how Meat Cleaver will be good if you don't get random enrages while you are whirlwinding. Obviously, it can be good in that sense, though. The new Dragon's Roar, or Dragon Roar, is a 35-second cooldown, slightly upped from live, up from 25. Now, this is a rotational builder, damage dealer, and utility spell. No longer is it doing the always crits, ignores armor, whatever. The Dragon's Roar itself is a 12-yard AoE, 50% snare, and basically half of Bladestorm's channel damage worth of damage. The Dragon's Roar versus Bladestorm damage overall is really close. Dragon Roar actually, with Enrage factored in, of course, because you would obviously do the Bladestorm in Enrage window, is really close to damage. You're seeing right now this is 2,000 physical damage every 35, and then Bladestorm is not even 4,000 every 1 minute. Bladestorm is huge burst. Dragon Roar is a rage builder, which of course gives you 20 rage in the rec window because of double rage gen. And it's usable almost twice as often as Bladestorm and gives you the extra utility. I've also been told that Bladestorm rips some serious aggro right now and you die because of the aggro change. So be careful with that one. But Bladestorm in this build was actually just cut down a little bit in its DPS, just on the attack power side of things. But again, Bladestorm scales with your actual haste. It's a 4-second channel down from 6, so it'll always fit in a Frothing Berserker window or Enrage window. And it generates 25 rage over the duration. You saw it a couple times in the video so far. You still auto-attack your main target during that as well. So your auto-attacks, like with War Machine or whatnot, are still going to, scale even more, so you generate more rage. But with it's 25 rage over the duration. It's 50 rage over the duration in the rec window. And then, of course, if you're auto-attacking with War Machine, you basically fill up your entire bar. So you can go from a Frothing Berserker window to a... I mean, I can just show you. You go from the Frothing Berserker window immediately back into a Frothing Berserker window again. If you just do this, charge, activate, hit a Blade Storm. Yep. Absolutely. 100%. And right back into it with 4? We'll do 4 Raging Blows. So you just sit in that enraged frothing window for quite a while. That's, of course, with Reckless Abandon, because the extra 4 seconds. But not necessarily needed, right? Because this is a 90-second cooldown in rage, but if you're Blade Storming a lot, you can take Anger Management. Every 20 rage you spend reduces the remaining cooldown of Wreck by 1 second. Roughly makes Recklessness about a minute-long cooldown. So you can sync this with Blade Storms more often if you are doing burst DPS, which is what Blade Storm is about. People said that Dragon War felt kind of lackluster, but it's a huge damage amp, huge damage rotational and builder and snare. Not a lot of snares are this strong. Any snare you see normally that's like 20 or 30%, that really isn't a snare anymore. That's just a movement neutralizer, because mobs in World of Warcraft, or at least in BFA now, are seeing that they run faster than us, so they can't easily be kited. If you put a 20% snare on a mob and you stun it once, then you'll move at the same movement speed. But if you snare a mob beyond that 30% window, then you can actually kite. So you can't discredit this, and if the rage generation, or sorry, the threat generation on Bladestorm is too much depending on your tank, that's risky. So we'll see about that. Obviously, this has a, you know, movement speed snare component, and of course Bladestorm still has the you're immune to crowd control while you are doing the Bladestorm. So, and of course, you can still use your defensive abilities during it. That's the same. So there's possibilities here. I don't know which syncs up better in this regard, because Bladestorm versus Dragon Roar, they're very, very similar in overall damage. So if you're looking at just damage, but your new talents, of course, we've looked over a couple of them. Impending Victory, Sudden Death, the new Meat Cleaver. Then we have the new Anger Management moving down here. And then we have Siegebreaker. Siegebreaker, Dragon Roar. So this is basically a Colossus smash for the Fury Warrior, which at first you would be like, I guess so. But Fury has the possibility to have a really crazy burst combination with certain talents, right? And then of course, you know, you take Massacre, we'll take Carnage in this case, we'll just keep Sudden Death, we'll keep Inner Rage actually, and we'll go with Fresh Meat. So adding the additional Bloodthirst chance to enrage, Carnage gives us more enrage more often, and also it increases the damage of your Rampage baseline. Siegebreaker has a really neat interaction. So it's physical damage on a 30-second cooldown, and increases the damage you do to the target by 15% for the next 10 seconds and generates 10 rage. Or, of course, 20 in Wreck. The best part about Siegebreaker, though, is that it cleaves. So when you actually activate it in the window of time with your Whirlwind buff, you can apply this to your main target and 4 additional, so 5 in total. And then you can Dragon Roar on them. You can make sure you can Carnage them more often, because it's going to lower the overall uptime. Siegebreaker is going to be it works well with Bladestorm, of course, too, for burst. But you can sync up your Dragon Roar basically with every single one of these every time. So you can put your Dragon Roar in Enrage and in a Siegebreaker window. Just delay your Siegebreaker by 5 seconds. And you're right there. Obviously, you want to activate your Enrage first, which can happen easily with Carnage, right? All these little things. Or happen with Fresh Meat, because if you get that higher crit chance on... Or the higher... Not crit chance. It's just a chance, right? The higher chance on Bloodthirst to activate Enrage. So there are little possibilities here that could be really good. Damn, I was hoping for one right there. But nope. So Dragon Roar. Oh, I hit the boss dummy. No! So really interesting potential, depending on what builds you want. Obviously, there's always be like, oh, a number is this, a number is that, and all this other mumbo jumbo. But if numbers are not that different, again, look how really close Bladestorm is to Dragon Roar, then it depends on what you're doing. That's all talents should be. Depends on what content you are doing. And again, show you the differences where your talents moved and stuff like that when we wrap this up. There's some good stuff happening here. Definitely is a really well iterated upon. I mean, there's been a lot of praise for the Fury Warrior update for sure. The Fury Warrior and the Unholy DK, even Frost DK outside of the POF madness. You're going to check out the Frost DK video that I posted before this one. But really good stuff. Let me know in the comments down below what you think of the new Fury Warrior and if you're excited for it or not. Real quick on the global cooldown front, all it is just recklessness on the GCD. There's nothing else that's on the GCD that's any different than what you're used to. Obviously, major cooldowns are going to be on the GCD. Normally, your main defensive is not. Your leap does not have a GCD, and then charge has a 0.5, I believe. Yeah, it's a 0.5 on charge, but normally you're in the animation when you're charging, so not a big deal. And then again, when Wreck comes off cooldown here, you'll see that it puts you on a global cooldown as well. Yeah. No noises, though. I don't know if I should feel sorry or not. That's so ridiculous. So that is, of course, the GCD updates. And then the War Mode stuff. So War Mode is going to be the new open world PvP madness that can happen in World of Warcraft and Battle for Azeroth. So you activate War Mode in your capital city of Orgrimmar or Stormwind. And when you do this, you're going to be sharded with all other people in the open world up to a cap per zone or per sharding that is also in the War Mode system. You'll gain additional rewards at max level for doing world quests and 10% more XP for killing monsters and completing quests on the way up while you're leveling. More bonus honor for killing things in the open world. And of course, the talents involved here are active in PvP islands and in, anything with the PvP stuff, arenas, battlegrounds, all that good stuff, right? And if you go on a 10+ kill streak, you become an assassin for your faction, granting you 15% more damage and healing done until you die. Then you get to pick any of these talents. You can pick one of your medallion talents, and then you pick anything here, no matter if it's competed or not. So we grabbed Battle Trance, which is when you go into a trance, causing you to regenerate 3% of your health and regenerate 5 rage every 3 seconds for 18 seconds after using Raging Blow twice in a row on a target, which is very easy to do because Raging Blow has 2 charges baseline. You can just sit in Battle Trance while you're world questing. Of course, when you use Raging Blow on a new target, it cancels. But you can take Inner Rage to get even less cooldown on Raging Blow to make sure you can always pair it up with back-to-back to stay in Battle Trance. Slaughterhouse is that Bloodthirst will deal an additional 50% damage and healing when it hits a target under 50% health, and reduces the remaining cooldown of Bloodthirst by 1 second. Fresh Meat, Furious Charge double time. Add even more healing into your Bloodthirst whenever you charge as well. That'll be really annoying to see a Fury Warrior charge you in War Mode that heals for half their HP. Sure, okay. And we took Enduring Rage here, which increases the duration of the Enrage effect by 1 second. You'll pick up 5, and your Raging Blow will extend the duration of your Enrage by 1.5 seconds. So again, Inner Rage, Enduring Rage, Battle Trance. You'll just sit in the Enrage window almost all the time. Compare that with Carnage that'll activate Enrage over and over again as well at less rage cost. It'll keep generating more rage passively, healing yourself passively, and having the additional heal and the additional chance to enrage yourself with Fresh Meat. See where this is going? It's really all smushed together. If, of course, you're doing any War Mode nonsense. But you can obviously take any combination here. So go check out the WoWDB talent calculator, or of course WoWhead for the actual calculator. You could read through and look through all of these and put together your own build if you would like, because there are some very interesting ones here. You can obviously go super defensive with Spell Reflection and Disarm, for example, but you can pick and choose whatever you'd like and make whatever build you see fit. But that is the Fury Warrior. The Fury Warrior has a ton of good things going for it. Let me know again down in the comments down below what you think of the new Fury Warrior. If you enjoy the fact that I made a gnome or not, that's fine. You can tell me. You can be honest. Of course, if you'd like to keep up to date with what I am doing and when videos are going live and all of this stuff, then you can, of course, go check out my socials down below in the description box. Of course, go follow me on Twitter, where I post when new videos go live, where I'll, of course, post when I'm streaming. And, of course, you can answer me, you can ask me anything, and I can answer whatever questions you may have on Twitter, and then you'll be up to date on when we have some MDI shows coming out, or some, when the class shows start back up again, when we get to interview players about all these specs. So go check me out over there on Twitter. All my links are down below in the video description box, as well, of course, as the VOD for all the testing for the Fury Warrior. But regardless, thank you all very much for listening to my rambles again, and I will see you all in the next BFA beta second pass video. That's the wrong button. Good job, Adam. Good. Solid outro.